let's see, it's 1:30 in New York, and it's 8:30 in the evening here in Israel. It's been a beautiful day. The crazy summer is beginning to get normal again. Um, so welcome back to Life Sciences Today. I'm your host, Eddie Lieberman, and my guest today is David Lazerson. Lazerson or Lazerson?
Both work for me, but General Lazerson.
David Lazerson is the co-founder and CEO of Briya, and we'll talk about the journey, value creation, and customers, and value capture, how they make money, and three things David wants to do for his customers in the next 12 months. How does that sound?
Sounds perfect to me.
Okay, great. So, David, take us back. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. What made you start with something as gnarly as zero knowledge proofs for healthcare data?
Well, so we, my co-founder and myself, we decided to start a startup in healthcare uh, in the beginning of the pandemic. It was the very beginning of COVID. We decided that we will go for healthcare. We already explored the healthcare area for a while, but we came from other areas. I'm coming from cybersecurity and data infrastructures. My co-founder coming from big data and AI, even before it was cool. And we started to explore the healthcare industry and trying to identify a challenge. And we understood that one of the main challenges is access to data. Healthcare research is limited by its access to data. It's limited by the ability to make the most of it. Unlike many other industries that leverage data for decades already. So we decided that we will tackle this challenge heads on. And we identified the reasons why it's so challenging in healthcare. One reason is that healthcare data is so scattered, so unstructured, have different formats in different places. That's one challenge. The second challenge is the compliance and privacy issues. Healthcare data is the most regulated data you can find, and for a very good reason. So this is the reason why when you're running research, it's so hard to get to data. So we, as technological people, what we did is identifying what technology can solve these big challenges. And we started developing the ability to access data, to structure data, to anonymize it in a really secure way, the ability to match data, and here the zero knowledge proof coming in, to match data from different sources without compromising the privacy and the security of the patients. These were our main goals. And as the time went, we built more and more capabilities, mainly around the ability to harmonize data, to make sense of just random nodes, of not necessarily structured coding, etc. We understood that having access to data is not enough. A lot of the researchers don't necessarily able to define what exactly they need, so they need assistance with that as well. And that's how gradually we developed our core AI engine that is capable of harmonizing and structuring data of all types and building it in a meaningful scientific way, helping with right methodology and epidemiological validity for researchers. And that's what Bria is today. It's a very powerful tool for researchers based on ability to harmonize and share data in a secure manner.
So you started as a like an infrastructure play, but at what point did you realize that infrastructure wasn't enough and that that your customers wanted insights and not just secure pipes? Because what you have today is like a system of agents where you can ask questions and get answers and insights. And when you started, it was more like an infrastructure play, wasn't it? So at what point did you realize that people wanted insights and not just infrastructure?
Yeah, I think this is something that happens to a lot of people that come to a challenge from the perspective of technology.
Mhm.
So we solve the big problem, and then we realize that users don't get it. Users don't care.
Users don't care about technology. Users care about the answers, right?
Exactly. And we needed to cover this gap to bring the real value from the technology to users. And this is a very common mistake, apparently, or even not a mistake, part of the journey for many founders that coming from the technology. They're starting with the technological challenge and they end up with the real value and not vice versa.
So how long did it take? You founded the company in 2020. How long did it take, to get to the point where you started to say, you had this aha moment? Okay.
I would say that it took about 3 years. Somewhere during 23, maybe that's the time where we started to see the interest in and the spark in the eyes of researchers when they understand what the technology can really do for them.
So what customer conversations tip you off that AI was the next layer? Maybe, it could have been that not AI, it could have been, I don't know, data cleaning. So what tipped you off that it was AI?
So it came up kind of naturally because one of the main challenges with healthcare data is it's primarily unstructured. We published an article, a scientific article a while ago, showing that around 2/3 of the value of healthcare data is in doctor notes and not in structured fields in any system. So this brought us to develop AI. Even before the AI revolution, we worked on developing the AI, the natural language processing, to make this accessible, to make the value of this data accessible. And then we got this additional push with the generative and then agentic AI revolution. And then that's really what brought Briya to the front.
But this was like, people told you this, right? You had conversations with customers, I assume.
Right. Absolutely. We talked to the researchers. Let's say it took us a lot of time to explain them why our technology is great. And then they said, okay, so now I have here a ton of PDFs. What can I do with this? Or here is my question. How can you translate it into something meaningful? I don't have an epidemiologist next to me. So those are the questions. And we really try to just provide the maximum value. As you know, as a startup, especially an early stage startup, you're really trying to assist each user. You're really trying to bring an additional value to every user. And that's pushed to this direction. And as always, you also hear a lot of noise. You hear some requests and needs that are out of scope. But this was very common. This was something that we were pretty quickly able to track something common across many researchers and different types of researchers. It's academic researchers, it's researchers in pharma companies, it's CEOs of small startups that just want their next validation point for next funding point. It's really coming across different industries, the same pain point, the ability to leverage different unstructured and unharmonized data, and the ability to get scientific assistance to get an epidemiologist out of the box, if you want.
So I'm trying to get an idea what kind, when you say research, that's kind of a general term. So I'm trying to get an idea of when you say research, let's say go to a pharma. Okay, so when you talk about, say, Shaarei Tzedek, I don't know if that's like academic research, if anyone ever made any money in academic research. But no, seriously, if you go to a pharma customer and they're doing research because what is the end game? What's the end point?
Sure. So there are several use cases. So I maybe will give a couple of examples. For example, pharma has a lot of data from past trials. And one of the holy grails is to find in this data new opportunities. For example, if you understand that there is some unique responsiveness to your drug with another condition that you didn't think of it originally, that's a jackpot. That's a huge win for a pharma company. And this is something that is very easy or convenient to do with Briya because it processes all the data. It's very easy to identify unique patterns, etc. So this is one example. Another example is, for example, So when pharma companies are running, let's say, a big pharma company running a due diligence with a small pharma company, they need to process a huge amount of data in short times and kind of validate the methodology. Validate the methodology of their studies by now to ensure where it's a good or bad idea to acquire them. And by the way, same goes the other way. Small pharma companies are looking to validate their methodology and validate their data before they're uh, either raising another funding round or going for acquisition. So there's another use case, the validation company. Um, in many cases, it may be about identifying a cohort of patients for a trial. It's not so easy to define a good cohort that, on one hand, really works epidemiologically for your trial, but in the same time exists in reality. And you need to connect these two dots. And these are just few of the examples of use cases that we've seen of how pharma companies using Bria.
Cool. Amazing. So I guess it's a good time to move on to the value creation question. Okay, so now fast forward from 2023 when the light bulb went on to September 2025, and you have AIRE. AIRE, that's the way you said AIRE.
That's correct. And
Yeah.
AI integrated research environment.
Ah, no, I get it. Okay, so when you have AIRE and you have all these little agents running around, so you show it. I saw it on the website. There's like a little Google search box there, right? So
That's correct.
what happens? You go, or I guess a salesperson goes to I don't know, to a he cold calls someone in drug development at I don't know, at Pfizer, and he says probably not Pfizer, maybe Pfizer, and he says, "What do you think about this?" And he said, "Okay, let's say and like 25 calls, and 3 months later, they have a meeting, and he shows him AIRE, and what happens at that point?"
So, in fact, it was kind of an iterative process. We developed our initial tool and we showed it, and then we received a feedback, a positive feedback, but also a feedback that pushed it to some direction. And then we came up with the second or third or fourth iteration, slowly developing the product and moving to some direction. So it wasn't just a one day that we came with this. I think the first tool that we provided to pharma companies was an assistant that helps with cohort definition. That was the first thing that we provided to pharma companies. By the way, the first thing that we provided to academic researchers was the natural language processing capability, the ability to extract insights from or diagnosis from unstructured data. So these were our first tools, first value that we provided, and it went pretty well. So some pharma companies paid just for the ability to better define cohorts. Some academic centers paid or published studies with Bria only for the ability to extract insights from unstructured data. And then we started to consolidate it into a wider and wider research environment. What we understood is researchers in life sciences lack a robust or comprehensive research environment. They work with random files, they work with random systems. They don't have an assistant, they don't have a framework, a methodology to work. And for example, I'm coming from cybersecurity. In cybersecurity, researchers have very well developed frameworks for work, very well developed environments. And this something that never happened in life sciences. And we brought the same approach and the same level of comprehensiveness of solution to life sciences. And so we started to expand. We started to bring more use cases, more capabilities. We understand that a researcher and you talked about the small agents, that the researchers go through a journey. It starts with hypothesis testing, it continues to literature review, then definition of cohorts and the study design, then analytics, descriptives, and eventually drafting an abstract. And we solved each part of the journey separately. We provided an agent that is expert in every step in the journey. So the result is, if you're a researcher who is not an epidemiologist, it serves as a virtual epidemiologist, as an assistant throughout all the stage of the research. If you are an epidemiologist, then this tool takes all the dirty work from you, and it helps you focus on the main part of your study.
Cool. So I guess I just thought of something, and I've been involved in clinical data for about 10 years, and so how quickly can a researcher go from a question in plain English to, let's say you mentioned repurposing. Okay, so repurposing is a really interesting problem because a lot of pharma don't reuse their data. Okay, and that would seem to be a huge opportunity. I mean, it's nice for researchers and academic people to publish papers, but I doubt if they're going to pay you much money for that. So, if at all. So, let's talk about repurposing. So, how quickly, okay, so you go to, Pfizer or some other company that has a pipeline, like UCB Pharma does like about 100 trials a year, and they want to repurpose. And so how long does it take? If I was a researcher and working on repurposing at UCB, I would say, holy shit, this is great stuff. But then you would say, wait a minute, we have to prepare the data so that AIRE can start chewing on it, right? So how long does it take to go from that, give it to me now, to now you get it, now you give it, now I give it to you?
So that's a part of of the value here. It really doesn't take too much. Briya, and you even can play yourself with Briya on the web. You can upload a file to Briya, and a file with data, and it will immediately process it and allow all these features. And when you run questions, when you ask questions, you get answers within minutes. It's not milliseconds because it's really a deep AI that needs to think, but it's minutes. So the ping pong, the ability to try something and then try something else and then refine a little bit and try again, you can things that in the past took months because you need to define a thought and then go to the DI and they run something and they go back with an answer and you refine it. Now you play with yourself and you get an answer within hours. You can get to something. Maybe later you will involve the biostatisticians and the DI and everyone to validate it better, to go deeper. But you can test and go further. Really, you shorten months to hours. If you want to integrate with databases and not only upload a file, so here it usually takes for a large enterprise, which is usually the case with either big pharma on academic centers. Small pharma, it takes much less. But the large enterprises, it's mainly the regular challenge of integration with database. So it may take several weeks of project. But by the way, there is no need to prepare data for Briya. That's part of for Briya AIRE. That's part of the cool thing, because it chooses its own data, and moreover, it helps you prepare the data. If you will put very dirty data in Briya AIRE, it raises a flag on all the quality issues. It will tell you exactly where there are discrepancies in definition or different ways to define the same thing. It will tell you where there are numbers that doesn't make sense. We've seen in the data like 3-year-old girl who is pregnant. It's probably not true. So it identifies all the problems with the data and and raises the flag, and you can handle them. So it helps you process the data. So you really don't need to prepare it. You only need to integrate with the data.
Cool. Very interesting. I have a lot of questions around that, but I won't bother. I won't bore our our listeners with the questions I have. Maybe I will take a minute or two after the show. So this brings us to the next question, because this is a huge value add what you're doing, by the way. People should know, if you're listening to the podcast now, what they do, be able to upload a file, say upload an Atom data set, say, and for the software to be able to understand the fields, that's like the holy grail of clinical data management. So that's not a small deal. Okay, it's a big deal. Now let's move on to the value capture question. So I guess validation by an Israeli hospital like Shaare Zedek is one thing, but startups live and die or die turning that into repeatable business. So what did you have to prove to your Series A investors to show that Briya can cross that chasm?
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right. Not that there is no money in the academic research, but you're completely correct that most of the money in life sciences is in the field of the pharma and the medical device companies. So accordingly, this is our main focus and our main type of customers. There are two paths to value capture. First of all, in trials, in research, in post-marketing, in all of those companies, Briya provides, if I'm going high level, before this we discussed actual scientific value, but if I'm going to high level, basically we save a lot of costs and we accelerate time to market. That's the two things that we do. So it really allows us to tap into existing budgets. And by the way, we are not working in a void. Pharma companies understand very well that AI is the solution to many of their challenges. If you will talk nowadays to any VP at a big pharma company, that most of the things that they are talking on their board meetings right now is how can they leverage AI for their main challenges. And they're trying to build roadmaps, and they're trying to envision the future, how maybe it can completely disrupt even the way that clinical trials work, or even how FDA may accelerate approval of some type of drugs, etc.
Right.
So when we're talking to them, we're talking the same language. It's not that we are bringing something out of the blue, and we're tapping into existing budgets. It's worth a lot of money for them, so we definitely have a way to capture the value. But the additional layer, and this is part of our strategic vision, we are building a huge network of both pharma companies, life sciences, and healthcare organizations. We believe that a lot of money is in between, in the connection between those, because the ability of pharma companies to access and leverage de-identified high quality data from healthcare organizations, that will on one hand really will drive the innovation in healthcare, but at the same time, that's where is most of the money is. So we are building those partnerships to ability to be the middleman and to take our cuts from those collaborations that we enable, that we allow technologically, and take our cut from them.
Interesting. So that's what, like, pharmacovigilance.
For example, yeah.
So I know you probably can't share exact revenue, but when investors leaned in, you're talking about the Series A 2 years ago. What was the strongest signal that they saw that Briya was not just another pilot project, that contract size, pipeline size, or something else? So what was the signal?
I think the main signal is our ability to convince very conservative organizations to install Briya. We we partnered with some significant, large healthcare systems that are very conservative, that evaluated a lot of other systems, and eventually Briya was the only one that they felt comfortable with, privacy-wise, security-wise, etc. Same to some pharma companies. That was, at least back then, the main signal that Briya is doing something differently than the others. It's also about the business model. We never take control of data from anybody. One of the main challenges of most of our competitors or alternatives, that in order to provide their value, they need to take the data from you. And this is a big no-no in this market. That's a big hurdle or challenge for many of them. And the way that Briya works, the completely distributed manner, both technologically but also business-wise, we keep the control of the data with the data owners. We never take the data. We never take it to us. And this is really one of the things that allowed us to expand on the early stages and was this important signal backwards.
So what's the strongest pull right now? Is it the demand is higher from pharma or from healthcare systems?
Both. This is, by the way, a challenge for a relatively small startup, that we see interest in both sides, and we are addressing them both. We are trying to meet the needs of academic centers and the needs of pharma companies, and they're completely different animals. And although the technology
totally
is the same,
different requirements. Drug repurposing is totally different than health. I don't even know what healthcare organizations want to do. I mean, they're looking mostly probably for optimizing billing and transactions, I assume. No, they.
I would say that mostly healthcare organizations nowadays trying to optimize human resources. That's their main pain, even before anything else. It's the biggest challenge of today. But the connection here to us, by the way, is that we are really helping researchers, and researchers are usually the top talent in those health organizations. So this is the way they see it. That when a researcher really gets a lot of value from Briya, it's important for the healthcare organization, especially if it's a prominent researcher. So it works, at least in the US. In Europe, it's even easier because there is a lot of funding and investment in research. Most of the healthcare organizations in Europe are trying to incentivize their doctors to run studies and run research, and then we tap into those existing budgets.
Cool. So I guess we're to the last question, which is kind of, David, it's kind of like an interview question. Remember when you were looking for a job and they would say, David, where do you want to be in 5 years? So it's a looking ahead question. So, if we sit down again in mid-2026, what would be your real traction? And what are 3 things you want to do for your customers?
So in the last few quarters, let's say last year, we were able to prove the value of the product, and that's our current position. Now, it's in the next 2 years, it's mainly about the scale, the ability to scale and to really get to many organizations and provide value to many organizations. So one of the things that we are looking for right now is building strategic partnerships. As a small startup in a very complicated and complex market, we believe that we need to secure partnerships and work with bigger partners, and not just trying to build the whole go-to-market inside a small company. That's one challenge and goal that we have in front of us. We're investing a lot of time in this, and how can we be part of bigger solutions, bigger plays to get to bring Briya inside, if you want, into many solution applications. the value that we're looking to bring to the clients, to the customers. So our ultimate goal is really to see, if we're looking already 24 months forward, we believe that we may see drugs that are approved thanks to Briya involvement. I think it's absolutely a possible goal on the course of 2 years from where we are now. We want to see drugs moving from phase to phase thanks to Briya as the main enabler. We want to see treatments in healthcare that change due to insights from Briya. So that's where we see Briya in a couple of years, becoming a significant and a prominent player in drug development, in life science research, in healthcare research.
So what's going to surprise your customers in 2026? What will surprise them?
What will surprise them? I guess that what will surprise them maybe will even surprise myself, because one of the things that we identified, I think it's really interesting, healthcare market for a long time was very slow. If you're comparing it to other markets, the pace is not the same pace. It's much slower. I'm coming originally from cyber. In cyber, you always need to be on track of everything happening in the market because things change like this. Something new happened and all the network is talking about it and you need to adjust. The healthcare market wasn't like this until the AI revolution. When we came up with Briya AIRE for the first time about a year ago, we were pretty much the only ones doing anything similar to this. By now, we have already a lot of competition. A lot of other players are trying to do the same. Some are doing it even pretty well. Today, we already jumped to the next level. So we really went into domain expert agents that can do much more. And we developed it in months to keep and preserve our advantage, our form on the other players. But this space is something that nobody in license and healthcare has seen for many years. And I believe this space will continue and even accelerate, and license and healthcare taking a new pace and new velocity in this era. And I believe that by 26, we will surprise ourselves. And what we need to do is to make sure that we are innovative every single day.
Or monetize what you've done so far, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's going
to be. If we want to,
real
to continue on.
Yeah, real traction is issuing invoices, right? That's real traction.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been a journey, and David, thank you so much for joining me today. You know, we've gone from cryptography and zero knowledge proofs to AI-powered research assistants, and I think our listeners can see how Briya is trying to bridge one of the toughest gaps in healthcare and pharma development, turning data into actionable insight at scale and all the time keeping it private and compliant. So if you want to learn more, you can check them out at briya.com, BRIYA.com. And there's a little search box on the website. I guess you can try it out yourself, right?
That's correct.
Cool. So my name is Danny Lieberman. I'm the host of Life Sciences Today, and thank you for Danny Sudworth for quarterbacking this for us. It's great, great work, Danny, and amazingly interesting conversation, David, and quite a journey. And so we'll definitely be in touch with you, following what's happening because it's a fascinating space.